Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal, where as you can see, I'm joined by James Benge, who is going to be much more fresh-faced than me today because he didn't get up at 3:30 in the morning to watch the Arsenal game last night. I did, and I am struggling a little bit now, as I was in this morning's show, which I'm sure anyone who's watched it by now could probably tell. So, James, I think something tells me you might have to take the lead a little bit on this one. So what were you doing that meant you slept through your alarm? Because I'm sure you set your alarm for 3:30 a.m. to get up to watch that last night.
I thought you would watch it on catch up. I watched your Tuesday show, which days sort of merge into one, whatever day, Wednesday, and I was like, oh, he'll mostly because I was watching it thinking, God, I hope Charles has watched this because I know I've got a busy Thursday morning. You got up at 3:30.
The plan was to watch it on catch up. I wasn't planning to get up, as I said on yesterday's show, but weirdly the body does mad things, doesn't it? And there you go, 3:25 a.m. I wake up. And once I'm up at 3:25, it's like I looked at my phone to see what the time was. It's like, the game kicks off in 5 minutes. Tried to go back to sleep, and I just thought, well, I may as well just go and watch the game now I'm up. So yeah, I went downstairs and watched it, and it was a good game. It kept me entertained. I didn't drift off to sleep or anything like that. Classic pre-season fare, but some decent performances. Nice goal from Fabio and Hein starring in the penalty shootout. So yeah, all in all, it was a decent afternoon's work as it was over in LA.
I've only seen Fabio Vieira's goal. I apologize to all our viewers. I know they come here and listeners. I know they come here for your expertise. But they kind of expect a sort of little smattering of whatever I might have to say. But I have very little. I recorded another podcast this morning, which I can promo now.
Dare you?
A favour to friends. The Gig Pigs podcast with comedians Ivo Graham and Alex Keeley. We went to see Bat for Lashes. That should be out soon. But obviously watch this first because it's more timely. But I thought Vieira's goal was nice. And my overwhelming takeaway from this game is that away kit looks really nice.
Yeah, it does look really nice. Let me bring it up for you to have a look at on screen. There you go. That's what it looks like. Yeah, I thought that looked pretty decent. It was a nice goal from Fabio. I think it took a deflection off Eddie Nketiah. I reckon in real time, in a Premier League game, Eddie Nketiah is definitely claiming that. None of the sort of replays gave a definitive sort of view of it, but I'm sure you hear a slight deflection as it passed Eddie, and Eddie and Fabio seemed to be kind of laughing to each other as they went off to celebrate. So I got a sneaky feeling it took a slight nick off Eddie, but we'll definitely give it to Vieira. It was a nice finish from Fabio, who was had a decent enough game. I thought Eddie played pretty well in the first half, leading the line. He worked very hard. I thought he caused the Bournemouth defenders problems. They were resorting to fouling him a lot. I thought he was quite strong. At times there were some good performances in the first half. Timber was really decent. I thought Ethan Nwaneri played like pretty much 80 minutes. No one stayed on longer than Ethan did, which was interesting, I thought. And the thing with Ethan that really impressed me last night was he didn't do anything spectacular, but he just looked like a first-team player, if you see what I mean. Everything about him, the way he handled himself under pressure, because Bournemouth pressed really high. Their high press was good, and they were causing players trouble in midfield, and the defense was definitely being caused trouble when they're trying to play out. But then they were doing it in midfield as well, and he just looked really comfortable whenever he was pressed, and he just looked like he belonged in that environment, if you see what I mean, which sometimes I think is a really encouraging sign for a kid. Obviously a kid can suddenly do something spectacular and you can think, wow, he's amazing, but then he kind of just drops back out of it again. But I just thought consistently he just looked the part, if you see what I mean. So I thought that was good. And yeah, Martin Odegaard came on in the second half and looked sensational as soon as he came on. Yeah, honestly, looks so good. Just head and shoulders above everyone else on the pitch. So there was some bright spots, I thought. So it was a pretty fun evening. Morning, I should say, over there.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, just sort of even looking at the pictures, looking at the clips and the reaction on social media, and I will dive deep into this game, although I'm always of the view that this early on in pre-season, all you're watching is players sort of get minutes into their legs. But
yeah,
I think very exciting to see given the transfer activity that we're expecting to happen in the next few days, that both Fabio Vieira and Ethan Nwaneri have hit the ground running. Vieira looks, I mean, you know, you're never going to sort of confuse him for a bodybuilder, but he looks a little bit more physically there, I think, to an extent. Almost having had a whole half of 3/4 of a season out will have given him time to adjust to Arsenal's demands. That he's, you know, when you think about it, he arrived injured, didn't he? He's maybe not had a sort of true adaptation period to the Premier League. So I'm very excited and really looking forward to those games to come. I mean, I would always sort of counsel, don't get carried away by pre-season, because the next game is very much a reminder that a year ago, Erik ten Hag was sounding like a Marvel villain saying empires will fall before very near watching his own crumble to dust. So I'm not getting too carried away, but good to see. There wasn't extra time, was there? You didn't have to stay.
No, it went straight to penalties. So I mean, and the penalties were happening whatever happened. So if it was, you know, if there was a result, it was still going to penalties anyway. It's just that classic thing they're doing over in the States at the moment when it comes to pre-season games. So it wasn't that Arsenal won on penalties. It effectively was a draw, and then the penalty shootout, Arsenal won. If you saw, I mean, their Bournemouth's goal was. Have you seen it? Yeah, Bournemouth's goal. I mean, it was so fortunate. A huge deflection off Ben White, and you know, it was the only way anyone was going to get a ball past Carl Hein, because Carl Hein had a very good night as well. Made some really big saves, one in the first half, one in the second half, and then he really could do nothing with that goal. It was just Omar Rekik came on, gave the ball away, had a bad little cameo, Omar Rekik, when he came on, gave the ball away, and they ran through. Semenyo had the shot, and it just looped up off White and just went so high into the far corner. There's nothing Hein could do. And
really
I think
excited to see where Hein ends up on loan. I think that could be a very fun side story for Arsenal this season. He's such a good guy. I know that doesn't mean a lot, but I think wherever he lands, he will quickly find himself in a club that's willing him to be successful. And sometimes when you're on loan, that's half the battle.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find a quote here. This is what Mikel said after the game about Carl Hein and whether he's going to go out on loan. He says, that's a conversation we are having at the moment. Obviously, David and Aaron are away at the moment, and we're really short in the position. We want to develop our players, especially a player like Carl, who has big potential and a big future ahead of him. He needs to play games, so we're going to explore that option as well. It just makes perfect sense. Like, you know, when he's talking about the fact they need to develop their players, you're not going to develop Carl Hein by just having him sitting around again for another season. This is the only way he's going to develop this year now, is going out and play. He's already a fully established international. We know he can perform at a decent level, and if that's not going to happen at Arsenal, then he definitely needs to go out on loan, and I'm sure he will. But he's manfully filling in at the moment in the absence of David Raya and Aaron Ramsdale, another player who was absent yesterday, even though he was in LA, and there he is on the screen before the match with Urian Timber. Was Emile Smith Rowe, who is now, well, there is very Arsenal and Fulham are very close to an agreement over Emile Smith Rowe. Obviously, that's not the end of it. Then the player needs to go past the medical, agree personal terms and all that. But you would imagine that if Fulham are pushing this hard and have gone to this sort of level, that they're pretty confident behind the scenes that they can get a deal over the line for Emile Smith Rowe. Let's talk about Emile, shall we? And I know people on this channel think I talk about Emile far too much, but quite frankly, he's on the verge of going now, so he is going to get some serious flowers from me, because I really like Emile Smith Rowe, and I know you do as well. How are you going to feel if this all does go through as expected at the moment? And what do you make of the deal that Arsenal seem to have eventually got out of Fulham for him?
Up to 35 million, I think, is a very strong deal. Level, I guess, with Oxlade-Chamberlain as the record. What I don't know yet, I've been trying to find out on my day off, is exactly how much of that will be guaranteed money from Fulham. And, you know, as I said last week, that could be a worry, because even adding Smith Rowe to this side, I'm not expecting them to be much above 15th, 16th. So, you know, I don't want to be relying on clauses that involve a certain number of Premier League appearances if Fulham might get relegated.
Lots and lots of people disagreed with you last week, by the way. I don't know if you read the comments after the show went out, but a lot of people disagreed with your view on Fulham and their chances.
Fulham are not good. Fulham are not good. I'm going to stand by that, and I'm probably, when we do we went somewhere, I'll have to do a full Premier League prediction, and I tell you what, I think I'll have them in the bottom three.
No way.
So
should we have another £50 bet? What £50 bet we got going on at the moment?
Palace top four.
No, I'm definitely winning. What was it?
Palace top 4.
That was it. Palace top 4. Do you want to have another £50?
I am not
bet
double or quits in you.
that Fulham don't get relegated?
No, because I
would.
know I'm going to lose 50 quid to you on Palace. Damn it, Elise, he's so good and he's gone. But yeah, kind of to slam back on track. I would want to know how much is up front, and hopefully in the next day or two we'll have some. I'll be able to report on that a bit more and get more of a sense. But it's a fantastic bit of business for Arsenal. It's a success story for Arsenal. I guess the frustration is there really was a moment where it felt like the success story for Arsenal was going to be a player that was in their starting 11 or a key cog in the squad for his whole career. I don't think with other academy graduates we ever really thought that. I think it was quite apparent fairly early on when Reece Nelson was playing under Mikel Arteta that he was never going to be a starter. He could be very useful, but probably never as a starter. And Nketiah, I don't think we've ever really thought Eddie Nketiah is going to be the man to lead Arsenal to where they want to go up front. Again, really liked him, hoped he could be a success. But with Smith Rowe, it's just, that time when he took the 10 shirt, signed the new contract, when fans were singing Saka and Smith Rowe, and it was a sort of open question who was the one that was going to be the guy. And these two were the face of the franchise for a little while. It's a pity. I wonder if Arsenal themselves could have done more to really manage Smith Rowe well. I would take you back to those early Europa League games. Kind of the story of Smith Rowe's career has been this, Arsenal has been this pubic bone issue, which is quite common in young men his age and his shape. And he played through that for too long because Arsenal sort of really wanted to blood him in. And I know there were instances in that early Europa League campaign before Arteta took charge where things were flaring up and Smith Rowe played through them because, you're a young guy. Why wouldn't you, when you're just getting your break in the first team, you feel like you want to maximize that. I think if that had been addressed earlier, it's very hard to know, isn't it? Because then you might not have had that early breakout, and without that, you might not have got anywhere near as high as you've got. But it just became a tale of injuries, didn't it? And kind of as he was unable to push his career on, Arsenal kind of got rocket fuel in theirs. I feel like if Smith Rowe had been fit at the start of 21, 22, you could well have seen him as the left 8 very frequently in the position. Not 21, 22, 23.
23, yeah.
At the very least, sort of he would have been the one rotating with Xhaka, with Partey. The midfield would have been 3 from Xhaka, Partey, Smith Rowe and Ødegaard. I think that's the moment it slipped away. I'm sure he will have success at Fulham personally, even if I'm skeptical about Fulham's success.
Yeah, I get a lot of people saying to me on this channel, and I spoke about it on my show this morning about, why do you sort of care more about Smith Rowe than you seem to care about some other players in the squad? And I sort of gave my explanation of it today of, when it was so difficult watching Arsenal just before he came into the team, you couldn't really see where things were going. It was dark, it was cold, it was in the deep dives of COVID, just before leading up to that Chelsea game. I remember travelling home from the Everton game after Arsenal had lost again, thinking Arteta's going to get sacked here, and just thinking, where do Arsenal go? And then suddenly Smith Rowe came into the team alongside Saka on that, and Martinelli on that Boxing Day against Chelsea. And suddenly this team that hadn't been able to create anything, score goals or anything like that, suddenly they just looked reborn and revitalized. And, he was so central to that. And, I think that's why not just Smith Rowe, but Saka as well, so many of us just appreciate these two and what they did and how important they were to this sort of rebuild in terms of where Arsenal are now. I mean, Arsenal might have outgrown Smith Rowe, and like you said, they sort of got rocket fuel progress while he was injured. But, had it not been for him and what he did during that period, almost single-handedly, and him and Saka, they were carrying that team in the second half of the season. Arteta might not even be here now because of that. And so he just, so much of where Arsenal are now is down to Smith Rowe, Saka, and that second half of the season when they completely changed the mood around the club, and I'll always remember him for that. And also, obviously, he's homegrown Hale end boy, so you're always going to have that kind of emotional time with him a little bit more than other players. And I really hope he goes and absolutely smashes it at Fulham. I think it's the right thing. I think it's a good deal for Arsenal. I think it's a good deal for Fulham. I think if Smith Rowe can stay fit, and I really hope he does, that he will do really well for Fulham. I think he'll score goals. I'm definitely going to put him in my FPL team. I think he's going to get points. And I really, really, really hope he smashes it over there. And I like Fulham as well. So it's I'd have been disappointed if he'd gone to a club that I don't like, but I like Fulham. So I'm happy he's gone there. And I'm happy it looks like he's going to go there as long as this deal goes through. So just while we're talking about him, Charlie's got in touch here, said, with ESR's departure seemingly imminent, what's your favourite moment of his in an Arsenal shirt? For me, it was Spurs at home when we blitzed them in the first half at the Emirates. The stadium was absolutely on fire that day. I mean, I agree fully with Charlie. I mean, this was definitely my favourite Smith Rowe moment. That first half was when we kind of saw, it was the first time we really saw the new look Arsenal emerging, wasn't it? The new players were all on board. They'd had the couple of wins after that first international break when I think they won against Burnley, and it was the first win. Was it Watford?
Norwich?
Norwich. It might be Norwich. Yeah, the 1-0. And they beat Burnley 1-0. And then it got to this game. And that first half, Smith Rowe, Saka, Orba, everyone just exploded and they overran Spurs. And Smith Rowe, you see the picture there of him celebrating the goal. Arsenal, he called it the best day of his life afterwards, didn't he? And it was a Saka assist for him. And then he set up Orba for his goal. And it was definitely my favourite Smith Rowe moment. There's plenty of others as well, but that one definitely is up there for me. Is there anyone that sort of comes into your mind that isn't that game that you can think of?
Yeah, I was going to say that is the obvious one, and everything else pales in comparison to that one. But I think they come from that period. I remember, his goal against Leicester in that brilliant 2-0 win where Ramsdale makes the save at the other end.
Oh, yeah.
And, but I think my favourite beyond the Spurs game was it 2-0 win over Villa on a Friday night a few weeks after, when he's sort of on the left and, they're playing that 4-4-2 with Aubameyang and Lacazette. And like you say, like Smith Rowe and that year of, what was it, 2021? There was just this sort of giddiness, a sense kind of to reuse a chant from a few years before that Arsenal fans had got their Arsenal back. These fearless young players playing attacking football that we'd not really seen from Mikel Arteta for a lot of his reign. And I thought Smith Rowe typified that. So yeah, that sort of late winter of 2021, post-COVID as well, it sort of felt like I completely agree with you when you're saying, why do we talk about Smith Rowe so much? Football's not just like about carving out squad roles and clear-eyed, brutal assessments of who needs to stay and who needs to go. I think Emile Smith Rowe, for a lot of Arsenal fans, especially match-going ones, will always be the guy that represents that sort of giddy rush of coming back into the stadium and Arsenal being so much fun again.
Absolutely. You just need to see when he gets off the bench, when he's warming up as a substitute and he gets off the bench, the roar that goes around the Emirates when it's like Smith Rowe's coming on now. It's like almost celebrating a goal. That's what he means to so many Arsenal fans. And, and that's what he means to me. And that's why we maybe talk about him more than others, because he's, when he comes back, the first time he comes back to the Emirates, he's going to get the sort of welcome for an opposition player that very, very few players. I mean, we're talking Santi Cazorla type reactions. Robert Pires, when he came back for Villarreal in that Champions League game, quarter-final way back when he came back. That's the sort of reaction that Emile Smith Rowe's got. And he's not won anything like Robert Pires. He's not achieved anything like what Robert Pires has done, but he just does hold that special place in the heart of so many players, fans, especially, fans, sort of local, North London fans who just have that extra bond with the Hale End boys. So, yeah, it's sad. It's a bit of an end of an era. But having said that, I do think it is 100% the right decision. And I hope he does well if it all goes through.
April 1st, by the way, at the moment, at the Carpet, Tuesday night. Get the beers in, Emile. We'll see you there.
That one is April 1st.
Oh, no, he could really come back and fool Arsenal, couldn't he?
Well, you can't do it after midday, can you? So technically not if it's a night game. Reece Nelson as well played last night. Eddie Nketiah played last night, was captain actually, Eddie, last night. Obviously, the two of them have been linked heavily with moves away. There's definitely interest there. Leicester now in the running for Reece potentially as a loan with an obligation to buy. Eddie Nketiah attracting strong interest from Marseille, but as far as I'm aware, it's not even close to being done. And the fact that he played last night has been captain and has also been sort of plastered all over Arsenal socials and been interviewed for the website and stuff like that since all the reports started coming out on Marseille. I thought it was quite telling that Arsenal did that. Maybe it was coincidence, but I'm not sure. But in terms of him potentially going there, I've been told that it's not even in the realms of close yet in terms of what Marseille want and what Arsenal might want to let him go. Mikel afterwards said, a lot of players have been linked with potential moves one way or the other. It's normal. We are in that moment in the market. What I really like are the players that we have with the level that they're showing and especially the commitment that you can see in those two, i.e. Nketiah and Reece, just by the way they have performed. If those two do go, and there's obviously a chance that they might do as well of Emile Smith Rowe, that's 3 attacking players who, albeit not massively used by Arteta recently, 3 attacking players, senior attacking players out of the squad. You would think, I mean, it's just an absolute given then that another attacker would have to come in. At least one more attacker would have to come in with all 3 of those going out the door in the same window.
Yeah, I would probably emphasize the word at least because, if you look at it in minutes terms, I mean, between them after Christmas, they started maybe 1 or 2 games, played a few hundred minutes. I think you can fill the gap in the squad with one player, probably a winger, based on sort of Havertz, Trossard, and all that as your centre forward options. But yeah, and look, we said this before as well. The plus side of letting go of these players that mean a lot to you, like Nelson, Smith Rowe, is that you have pure cash there. So whatever the guaranteed money is for Smith Rowe, spread that. Who was on good money as well, salary wise. Spread that over a 4 or 5 year contract, and you can use that to get someone really, really valuable if you can find them in the market, or you can massively ease your PSR position and still get someone who can give you as many minutes and as many quality minutes as Smith Rowe and Nelson did. So I think there's got to be a sort of preparedness to let them go. I know with Nelson in particular, compared to Smith Rowe, the contract isn't quite as much pressure, which maybe means you can be more open to loan deals with options only if you believe that it will enhance their value. But I mean, it's definitely true. There's lots of work to do on that. Like on the Nketiah front, I know, sort of speaking to people that know Marseille's position on this, that the interest is very strong, but they are expecting interest to come, I would assume, from the Premier League. I mean, we know he's always been linked to Palace and West Ham. So I think Marseille are very conscious that this deal's far from done and that what they want is maybe something that a Premier League team could come in and trump quite effectively, because I know they're sort of, or I believe their preference would be some form of loan, which I know Arsenal will be looking at what they've done with Højbjerg and Greenwood and saying, yeah, give us some cash, please.
Yeah, exactly. It's always sort of loan with obligation type stuff with Arsenal with these players, isn't it? When you're looking at them shelling out 30 million on Greenwood and whatever it is on Højbjerg as well. It's just sort of continuing on the theme here. Obviously, Ethan played yesterday, and we've got a couple of comments from Beeman and from Hamza. So the top one said, good day, chaps. I hope ESR's minutes get absorbed by Ethan. It wouldn't make sense to spend when the talent is in the house. The finances would be better served looking for a number 6 for the season or next season with the situations of Partey and Georgie. Gutted for ESR, but understandable. Hamza says, hi, Charles and James. Do you think ESR departing is a real natural way to integrate Nwaneri into the first team? Buying someone like Mourinho makes sense, but I don't think looking for a direct ESR replacement makes any sense at all. And I have to agree with this as well. Like you were saying, the sort of minutes combined of those 3 in the second half of the season were not much. And, I think Arsenal will obviously sign a player, potentially Mourinho, who we know they like. If they do get them over the line, I don't see that as a replacement for ESR, if you see what I mean. But potentially they can play in the same positions, because I think they'd see Mourinho as a left 8 option. And we've seen certainly more often not recently when ESR does play, he plays in that position. So I think he's a replacement, but not a like for like. So I just think you've got to, we obviously want young players to play. And in Ethan, as I was saying, watching him yesterday, I thought he was really, really good. I thought he just looked like he was a first team player, not a starter or anything like that, but he just looked like he belonged in that environment and he was good enough and the players trusted him. He trusted himself. you've got to be able to show him a pathway at some point. And with ESR going, that does open up a gap in the squad that I think would be really useful, because those minutes that Smith Rowe got last season, most players wouldn't, if you're signing a player to fill in to replace Smith Rowe, they'd want a lot more minutes than ESR got. But I think if you offer those minutes to Nwaneri at this age, that's the perfect amount of minutes and game time that he needs this coming season. So I'm not of the opinion that they have to replace ESR. I think Ethan Nwaneri has to be taken into account, and his pathway has to be taken into account now, because he looks ready to make his mark in the first team squad environment. So I'm not vouching for an out and out replacement for ESR, even though I do think they have to bring in another midfielder.
Can I make a wild prediction?
Yes.
That is less wild when I contextualize it. I think Nwaneri will play more minutes in the Premier League this season than Smith Rowe did last season.
I think it's probably quite a good chance, especially if they don't.
347 minutes Smith Rowe got.
I think there's definitely a good chance of that. I just think
I think it will be sort of around that level.
Yeah, I'll be really intrigued to see if he starts again against United or against Liverpool. I'd love to see how he gets on in that situation if he does, because Bournemouth. I'm not having to go at Bournemouth. They're a very good Premier League side. They showed that last season, but it'd be great to see him up against just a little bit of extra quality in those roles to see how he deals with it and how he handles it. But on last night's showing, and I know it's pre-season and everyone's sort of operating at 70-80%, he just looked ready to me to not start again, but just make an impact and have some minutes. And we can't sit here and have a go at Arteta like so many people do in terms of not giving youngsters a chance and then immediately say, right, you're selling one player, you have to replace him with someone else and spend 40-50 million pounds on that player, because then you're just blocking the pathway. So Ethan something needs to be dangled in front of him. And I just think those minutes that ESR had that could be absorbed are the perfect thing for him to chase.
Yeah, I'd love to see him get. I think you can add up a lot of minutes for Arsenal this season, coming on when Arsenal are 2-0 up at the Emirates. I hope that's certainly the expectation. I think that would add up quite quickly. And he's turning 18 this year. Time is, of course, emphatically on his side, but I think this maybe is the year he sort of moves away from Curio and what's going on here to let's get him involved, because otherwise you might as well just loan him out. And by all means, if you find a club that's going to play him thousands of minutes in the Championship or whatever, and he'll feature regularly, do that. But I kind of see his pathway being more like Phil Foden's at City, where it's 2-3 seasons of he's come, we've heard a lot about him, and then kind of starting to hit the big time, starting to start the low stakes Champions League games or the EFL Cup games and get good minutes in the Premier League.
Yeah. I thought Miles played well at left back yesterday as well. Lewis Skelly and Aiden Heaven looks a bit of a talent at centre back for 17-year-old. Talking about centre backs, looks like obviously this is a mocked up photo, but it'll be a very, very real photo of this kind of thing very, very soon. Ricardo Calafiori, medical imminent, will be heading over to the United States to play some part. Well, I say play some part. He'll certainly be in the States. Whether he plays in any of the remaining 2 games, we'll have to wait and see. But he'll be over linking up with his new teammates. Deal agreed with Bologna, just being finalised now. So we've kind of obviously talked about him a fair few times over the last few weeks, because this is a transfer that's dragged on a little bit. But now it is coming to an end. Arteta has got his man. I mean, adding him to what's already a very, very impressive defence, it's just an exciting signing, right? I mean, it absolutely has to be.
Handsome FC is back.
Handsome FC is indeed back. He shoots Arsenal back up the table when it comes to the handsome stuff. I definitely don't want to be seen standing next to him too often, I have to say, in the mix zone. I'd be backing away. I'd be backing away because I wouldn't come off very well in that picture. I have to say.
Those luscious locks looks like Jace Targaryen, as I joked on Twitter yesterday. I'm just very excited and really intrigued to see, having watched more and more, because we've known for a while he's coming. You see someone there that could offer on the left flank what Ben White offers on the right. I could see, I could see Arteta unleashing the sort of back six box where whoever's playing at the left wing comes and plays fullback, and Calafiori sits behind because they're 1 goal up in the Champions League quarterfinal, and there's 5 minutes until the final whistle. He could do that, but he could also, and has proven to be, someone that can bomb on. The only faint worry, and I'm certain that the medical, when it takes place out in the US, will clarify this. And this is always the thing we have to say that we can't know as well, and it's very hard to report on, is that past knee injury. But it seems pretty clear that that's cleared up. Obviously, it's a really significant knee injury, the sort that even now could be a career ender. So you have the worry there of sort of, what could this mean in years to come if he's on a 5-year contract? But equally, so what a story. And you kind of makes you admire this fighting spirit of Calafiori more, because he had a career-ending knee injury and he's back better than ever. One of the best players at Euro 2024. And it's so exciting. I think, football clubs shouldn't do their buying based on who's good in Euro 2024. And Arsenal did not do that. But as a fan base and, those of us following the club, it's so exciting when you snare like one of the stars of the tournament. A bit like, I can't remember the last time Arsenal picked up a guy that Davor Schuker is the one that my mind goes to. I don't know if you've got any other examples, but yeah, it's fun.
With Schuker 99 was the year after France when he started at France. Obviously, he was at the Euros in '96 as well. I remember when we signed Thomas Rosicky in 2006, and then he that was before the World Cup, but then he went to the World Cup and he had a really good, in one of the games he scored a couple of absolute belters, didn't he, in one of the games? I remember, and I was sitting in Germany because I was there watching England. I was sitting in a pub in Germany watching it and just seeing Rosicky score those goals, and I was just sitting there so smug, surrounded by everyone else going, "Yep, he's come into the Emirates."
Another member of Handsome FC there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anyone else we signed sort of on the back of a good tournament for them. I can't really think of it. I'm sure everyone watching might be able to remember, and if you do, let me know in the comments below. Yeah, but really, really excited by that, and I can't wait to see what he brings to this team. I've been speaking. Yeah, I'll call Andreas Shavin. There you go. There you go. That was what an exciting signing that was as well. And it was a lot of fun for the first couple of years before he decided he couldn't run anymore. But it was a lot of fun at first. So yeah, hopefully, by the time, what time we're recording this, 2:00, and this is getting published about 5:00. Can't imagine there's going to be any sort of announcement yet, but really excited to see what happens with him. Right, let's move on to some of your questions now. I've already included some of them in the show already up to this point, but we'll talk a few more now. Nicholas has got in touch here talking about Carl Hein. He says, today's game just showed how vital it was to keep Hein. I don't see him breaking into our 11, to be honest, but with a planned loan and a long-term contract, he really could turn into a 10 to 20 million pound sale. It's a very, very good point. You look at Arsenal's goalkeeper department right now, it seems pretty nailed down. You've got David Raya, who's not old. You got Aaron, obviously. We'll wait and see what happens for him. There'll be a new number 2 coming in at some point during the summer if Aaron Ramsdale does go. So it's going to be very hard long term to see Carl Hein forcing his way into the first team picture at Arsenal. But you do have the prospect of a really good loan spell, then suddenly putting himself in the shop window, and you can make some seriously good money out of him. So it's a very good point, the importance of getting him to sign that new contract.
Absolutely. I know that ideally Arsenal would, if they knew what was coming around the corner, Arsenal would not have wanted to lose Emi Martinez. But as a sort of a blueprint for how you manage a young goalkeeper, develop them, and sort of say, look, you can be a star even if you stay on our books for what, you might think is longer than expected. And you never know how these things break. What happens if Arsenal don't get in the, maybe not this summer, but if Ramsdale stays and Arsenal feel like they can't replace him, maybe in years to come, Hein can be the number 2. However it might break, it's always encouraging to have good players on your book. So it could be a 20 million pound sale. It could be a really solid backup option. It could just be that he goes on to have a good career and you're proud of what you did. It's good. It's all good.
Well, you look at Mika Biereth, and I know a lot of people thought Arsenal should have got more money for Biereth than they did, but I know Arsenal are very, very sort of proud of the work they did with Biereth in terms of developing, making sure he got himself a really good move and he looks like he's going to go on to have a good career. And, that's what it's all about as well. It's, yes, we want to see him come through the first team, but that just happens so rarely. But being able to develop these players and ensure they do go on and make themselves a good career, and financially you do benefit from it as well, is something that is so important for the club. And I know that they're very, very happy with the deal that they did with Mika Biereth and how it looks like his career might go. And I'm sure it'll be very, very similar for Carl Hein. It was nice to see him have his moment yesterday. And hopefully whatever loan move he does get, I think hopefully he has a really good spell there, and I'm sure he will indeed. Fabio Vieira, you spoke about him earlier on in this show. Here's one from Avon Teddington. It says, Hein, Lewis Skelly, Nwaneri and Heaven all look on track. Hein's stopping was outstanding. I thought Nelson was a better wide player. Just wanted to make an observation or two about Vieira. Decent, though deflected finish and a good interception late on, but that was mostly it. Sort of anonymous performance for much of the game. Also, and this might be subject to change, Arteta hasn't played Vieira at 8 since game day 7 last season when he was taken off at half-time v Spurs. Last night's youngsters were chosen ahead of him in the interior. Is it too soon to say Arteta has made up his mind? I thought it was a really good point, because it got me thinking. I hadn't really clocked it, but it did get me thinking. It was like he did yesterday go with Vieira out wide again. There were other options. He could have played Jesus on the right and then Nketiah through the centre. He could have played Reece out on the right. There were other, Trossard was on the bench. But he went with Salah-Eddin, who actually played very well, by the way, Salah-Eddin, I thought, in the first half, and Ethan. And then Vieira was out on the right. And the last time we saw Vieira last season really was on the right against Sheffield United as well. And it does make me wonder if Arteta is now deciding, when it comes to Fabio, that maybe his best role is coming from a bit further out wide than central areas. I thought it was quite a good point and observation to make.
That's interesting. And I have to obviously say, as we said at the top of the show, I'm coming to this having not seen last night's game.
Oh, yeah, actually, but I didn't think he was anonymous, by the way. I think that's a little bit harsh for Avon Teddington. He did take his goal well, but I didn't think he was anonymous. I thought he was in the game. He did everything neat and tidy. I don't think anyone really sort of starred from an attacking point of view, but I don't think Vieira was any worse than anyone else on the pitch. I thought he did his job pretty well.
I think what I would feel like this is something to just more keep an eye on rather than think Arteta's made up his mind, because it's only a fool of a manager that sort of fully makes decisions, especially with a player like Vieira that had so little football for so long, that makes those decisions one game into pre-season. It's certainly something to keep a watching eye on, and I think it will also it will all fit in as well around the transfer business that happens. If Arsenal do get another attacker, kind of the expectation is it would be someone to ease the burden on Saka. So it'd have to be someone that gets those right wing minutes. My suspicion is he just looks at Vieira at left 8, right 8 as a known quantity. And that right now at this stage, there's more kind of value to him in seeing how Nwaneri and even Salah didn't get on. But I mean, I'll keep an eye on it, and I reserve the right to agree with Avon if come those Emirates Cup games, the Emirates Cup and the friendly, if he's still not got any minutes at left 8, then I would be sort of thinking, has Arteta made his call there?
He's very, very different to Saka. Obviously,
yeah.
Different to Saka. He does like to come inside, obviously, but I'm not sure I'd be too keen on seeing a long-term Fabio Vieira playing as a right winger. I just think he's certainly more. The thing is, for Fabio, I think he's more suited to playing that right-sided 8 role than he is the left-sided 8 role. And unfortunately, you've got a certain Martin Odegaard in that position. He's not going anywhere soon. And hopefully, fingers crossed, there are no injuries that pop up when it comes to Martin Odegaard. So it's like, where do you put Fabio Vieira in the team when you've got Odegaard ahead of him? But yeah, good point. Avon Teddington is certainly one for us to keep an eye on. Right, back to Smith Rowe, but this isn't really about Smith Rowe. It's more about that number 10 shirt. It's from Louis. It says Charles and Benjani. I'm not sure we've had a Benjani before.
I like that.
For you. So
I
there
like
you go,
Benjani.
Portsmouth striker. Is the number 10 shirt at Arsenal cursed? Gallis's meltdown at St Andrews, RVP's mercenary betrayal, Wiltshire's injury-prone career, Ozil's fall-off after playing magnificently with the number 11 before switching, and now ESR's departure. Should we just leave that shirt vacant for a while? So is the number 10 shirt cursed? Now, I think you can ask a question about the number 9 shirt of Arsenal as well at times. Is the number 10 cursed? Maybe it's just what we all have to endure because we were so spoiled with Dennis Bergkamp for 8 years or 10 years, basically. Sorry, not 8 years, 10 years. Maybe this is what we have to endure. And to be honest, for 10 years of Dennis Bergkamp, I will endure this for another 30 years. So I don't really care. But maybe that is just it. But you're right. Obviously, it hasn't worked out too well for a lot of people who have had that number 10 shirt. And yeah, we all hoped, I think, when Emile took it, he was going to be the guy for the next decade at the club. Hasn't proven to be the case. Do you reckon Odegaard might take 10 now? Or do you think
I was one of my first thoughts when the Smith Rowe news accelerated was I was like, well, Odegaard would look nice in 10. But now that Louis mentioned that, I'm just like, don't gamble with it. I like your take on it because yours is sort of glass half full. As you know, I'm maybe sometimes more glass half empty. What I like to think is the sheer remorseless toxicity of William Gallas has this sort of radioactive half-life that, you know, is through the number 10 shirt, because RVP wasn't angling for exits when he was wearing number 11. So I think whether it is an exorcism, some sort of I don't know, some sort of religious ceremony to cleanse the number 10 shirt, I think it needs to happen. You know, I blame William Gallas for it. I blame William Gallas for a lot.
If in doubt, blame William Gallas. I think that's a really good mindset to have, to be honest.
If I had a DeLorean, go back. I'd be fine signing him, but just be like, Arsene, don't give him the 10 shirt. He'll get ideas.
Maybe Arsenal deserve it for giving Gallas the number 10 shirt. Maybe the club deserve it, to be honest, because they probably do. Like you said, I didn't have any problem at the time of actually making that signing, but giving him the number 10 shirt was an absolute joke. And maybe they do. Maybe they deserve it. Maybe that's what we all, like you said, we need to endure all this now to kind of cleanse ourselves of William Gallas wearing number 10 for Arsenal. So yeah, thanks for that one, Louis. Now one from Courtney. Hi guys, love the show. Just a question regarding the striker position. Are you not worried that with Nketiah possibly leaving, that leaves us short with only Jesus left? Courtney from Bristol. Of course, you said Jesus left. There is Havertz, who I think will be starting the season as number 9 anyway, unless Jesus explodes in his next couple of games. And he is looking very, very lean, I have to say, and sharp, which is a good sign. And there's Trossard as well as the number 9. But yeah, I mean, the whole Nketiah stuff, if he does go, which he might well do, how are you feeling about the situation? We kind of covered it a little bit by saying Arsenal do need to sign an attacker if these players who we expect to leave do go. I still don't see it being a number 9. I don't see it being an Nketiah replacement, though, do you? I still think the most likely option is going to be a wide player. I know there's been a bit of talk about Gyökeres has started sort of doing the rounds in the last 48 hours or so. You know, whether there's any substance to that, I have no idea. I haven't heard anything myself yet. But I still think the most likely option is another wide player to come in. I definitely think we are going to see the attack bolstered between now and the end of the window. Whatever happens, even if Eddie were to stay, I still think that would happen. But definitely if he were to go.
Yeah, again, I mean, just to sort of put some context in this, when we talk about minutes from the start of 2024 onwards in the Premier League, Nketiah 0 starts, 106 minutes, which is fewer than Nelson, Smith Rowe. It's pretty much the fewest of any outfielder other than Cedric, Vieira, Elneny, Timber. So
the Fulham game really was the undoing of Eddie Nketiah, wasn't it? It was mad.
It really was.
When you think he started that game, you know, he was a starter in that game at the end of the calendar year, and then from being a starter to basically not being involved at all for half a season, that was the undoing of him completely, wasn't it?
And you know, the sort of Fulham haven't been knocking the door down for Eddie Nketiah at the moment either. Yeah, I think long term you want to find sort of someone to come in at striker, but you don't want to rush it, do you? And I think it's a lot easier to sort of get a winger to compete with and back up your Martinellis and Sakas than it is at the moment. I really like Gyökeres, but I think he probably needs another season to really establish himself at a Champions League level. Same with people like Šeško, isn't it? I think actually the best thing you can do is hold firm and say, we'll take another look at this in a year's time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it probably will be that way. I mean, if a opportunity arises and suddenly Sporting decide that they will let Gyökeres go at a much lower price than that release clause, then maybe it's something they will look at. But I don't think, like you said, they're going to be in any rush if they can't find the guy they want. And this is the last one from Mezel Ganguly. Says, extra time. Hi, Charles James. With all the talk of Calafiori coming in and one of the two, Kivior, Zinchenko, going out, my opinion is we keep Zinchenko and let Kivior go. Calafiori would restrict his game time, and in Zinchenko we have someone unique who can play and be a deep-sided left playmaker, which would give us an extra dimension in matches where we might have most of the ball. Would love to know your thought. I think my thoughts are are pretty similar to what Mazel said there. I wouldn't be in a rush to get rid of Kivior, especially, Tommy's got another injury. Is that going to be a recurring theme throughout the season? Past history suggests it might be. So I wouldn't be in a rush, but I just think him and Calafiori are so similar. And when you've got Timber and you've got Zinchenko, I just think the most likely option is that he will go. And if it was a case of one of the two, I'd definitely be keeping Zinchenko just because of the point that is made here. I just think he's pretty unique and can offer you a little bit more perhaps than Kivior can in different positions. What are your thoughts?
100%. And I think there will, I think we all expect Calafiori to be the established starting left back, but I don't think he will play every single game. I think when Arsenal are coming up against I'm going to say Southampton, all due respect to them, a team where they expect to have 70% of the ball and all the territory, I think Arsenal should be playing Zinchenko. I think there'll be games to play Tomiyasu there as well if he's fit. Kivior maybe is a bit sort of redundant because he does the Calafiori stuff. And I think Arsenal need to kind of get in the habit in certain positions of not having this first choice back four, first choice midfield. And we'll start seeing that this season. It's everything we've heard around the club is that they're sort of looking to strengthen depth. And what that means is you have 7-8 nailed on starters and the rest sort of drop in and out in between. So yeah, you wouldn't get anyone that can really offer the stuff that Zinchenko does well. I can't think of many players that do better. So keep him on board for sure.
Yeah. Did you see this quote from Arteta after the game last night? He was asked where he would like to see more growth in this coming season. He says a lot of areas we want to prove in every area, in attacking and defending, metrics, restarts, set pieces, and with the amount of minutes that we shared around the team. I think that's an area we can still improve, having a bit more variability and versatility in certain moments in the players that we have. So I thought that's
on you, Chief.
That he pointed that out there. So yeah, it's basically him saying I need to improve again, give these players more minutes and share around a little bit more. It'd be interesting to see if he actually lives up to his word in that regard. I think he probably will, like you said. I think there's a clear case for doing that this season. That's about it. Now, mate, I think we've covered plenty in that one. We'll be back to do it all over again. I'm going away next Friday, so we'll have to squeeze one in. I'm going away for 2 weeks, so Inside Arsenal is going to be on ice for a couple of weeks. Everyone, I'm afraid. I know I did a few videos last time I was on holiday at Centre Park, so I might find it a little bit more difficult in Portugal. The boss might have a little bit more to say on it if I do that, but we'll see. I'm not ruling it out. So yeah, we will come back next week at some point. I reckon we'd do a normal one next week, but then I also want to do a predictions one that we can go out over that sort of fortnight where I'm away. So we might have to do a back-to-back recording next week, but we'll be back. Everyone else, I'll be back tomorrow morning with my usual show as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Until then, have a great day, everyone. Cheers, mate. Enjoyed your company as always. Have a good evening today. Enjoy your look around your potential new house later.
Ooh, and I'll new studio spots.
I know, potentially moving next door to the Emirates.
Everyone,
there you go. You can all go and knock on James's door after the game. He'll welcome you all in for a post-match drink. I'm sure his wife will be well up for that after the game. Have a good one, mate. Good luck with it all, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later.
You too. Bye-bye.